Hey up, Snow Nerd, and it's another devlog on Solar Goldrush, which is my main passion project at the minute. If you've not seen any videos before, it's like a procedurally generated space exploration game. And in this video I just wanted to talk about sort of like just blue sky feature ideas. I'll talk a little bit about what I've implemented recently, which has started working a bit better. So you'll notice that the star field, which is the background here, is a lot wider. Basically now I take the amount of stars that's been generated and I generate a random number of, well, not random, but double the amount of stars star field. So this with random spread and positioning, which does make it so that you might have noticed if you've seen the videos before that the star fields were quite limited, so you could very easily wander off the plane of viewable stars in the background, but that's now more or less been fixed. But anyway, I wanted to talk more about sort of what functionality is working, but also my ideas for how I'm going to expand on this project, what features are sort of I'm going to start working on in the pipeline. I'll demonstrate that, so I think I demonstrated this last time. You can do the hyperspeed, which generates a new galaxy on the fly with 49 stars in this instance. And then we're in a completely new galaxy now with new star positions and new planets. Those two are quite close to each other actually. But basically in this vlog I wanted to talk about future things. Obviously the glow needs a bit of fixing because at the minute it's flat. I want it to be a sphere basically. Probably won't be too hard if I can just somehow apply a sphere around the sphere, if that makes sense. We could even make it of material, I'm not sure, but one other fix which could be quite good to implement. So for example, when you've got the stars themselves, the planets don't currently revolve around, so you've got the planets here, for example, which have been positioned near this star. Obviously, if we could have these so they rotate in an orbit around the sun, that would be a lot better. Look, at the minute they're just static, they don't do anything. I'm going to fly up close to them, but it doesn't actually do anything. For the planet generation for now I'm going to leave, like I've said before, but might return to it. But I think I'm abandoning the idea of generating a random terrain using the random environment component and possibly create something a bit more bespoke. But for now, I think one of the main features I'd quite like to add would be enemies. So I'm going to look into creating a sort of enemy component and then generating some basic AI for that, because that then introduces a combat element. Of course, for that I'll also have to create add a control system for maybe space to fire a missile or like a lasers probably. First initial thought for that is to create it generates a primitive which then fires forward, so then it's got something to collide with other objects, and then you'd apply damage based on that collision occurring within the enemy component, if that makes sense. Let's get to a new galaxy.
Welcome to the Lisa Solar System.
So the random generation of the galaxies functionality works fairly well. I've also got this running. This is actually now running on Node and Express, so it's just serving this HTML page, running all the associated JavaScript, but it's now running on Node, so that then offers me now it's on Node and Express the option of being able to store values in a backend. So this does obviously open up a lot of potential. Initially it opens up the potential of being able to store a sort of user profile, of course, so the player in this instance can store the state of their shields, maybe what galaxy they're in. I'm not sure exactly how I'd do this, but I'm sure there must be a way of being able to create it so that for all the entities that are created here, we can store them somehow so they can then retrieve galaxies that have already been generated. The other thing as well is, of course, like I did originally have the idea of having this being a resource collection game. So obviously if you could collect something like the blue mana was the thing I had in mind, but maybe you could do it so you can mine asteroid fields, maybe you can eventually go onto planets and mine resources from there. Obviously adding the enemies would greatly enhance the gameplay as well. But yeah, this is sort of starting to come into something more. Like, so in terms of the features I want to develop now, backend, enemies is another one. Fix up the basic things I need, like the planetary orbits and the glow effect around the stars would be a good one too. But the starfield generation basically works now, like as you can see. Like I would probably still go off. Also maybe an accelerate button, so at the minute it's like a fixed speed for the I do want to implement something like maybe an energy meter so you can recharge, you know, I make it just like all that stuff so that it's more like you have to be a bit more careful. Maybe you have to collect the blue mana to actually get energy, which then can affect how much you can warp forward, or even if you can warp. So for example, maybe every time we do this,
Welcome to the Laurentian Solar
and go
System.
into the hyperspeed mode, it actually takes some of that energy down, so you can't just go into warp mode every single time. Like at the minute there's nothing just stopping me just going into warp mode every time. So if that was possibly tied to resource, and then gives the player more of an incentive. Another thing I've been working on, which I've actually added but it doesn't seem to be working yet, is how we have these glow sprites around the sun. I'm trying to add like random places where you could have like nebulae, so it would add randomly to each galaxy that's generated a nebulae effect, which is essentially just another sprite, but just gives the entire environment a bit more, makes it a bit more realistic, you know. Obviously further blue sky thinking, possibly could add things like black holes and wormholes. Wormholes actually did get working a while ago, but I'd have to define some sort of behavior for them. So one behavior you could do for that is possibly that, for example, if you go into the wormhole, it just basically initiates the hyperdrive move like this. So it just initiates this without any external, you know, pressing H with them, which is the current way to initiate it. And then obviously, like I think in the next month, once we've got this in, or two, or however long it takes, when we've got this into a more developed phase, I'd quite like to add some sort of front-facing web page, which then you can access the actual game through it. And then obviously then I can create an area for displaying player information with profile information, as well as being able to see other players. Something that would be amazing, I'm not exactly sure if it's going to be possible though, is to have shared sessions. So for example, if I was playing now and somebody came into the same galaxy, then we could see each other and interact with each other. Obviously that's a big thing to implement, with actual networked sessions. I know it is somewhat possible, but when I last tried doing this, I mean I did it with this Goethes project I did ages ago, but when it came to like the audio was a massive issue I had with that. But actually creating the shared sessions might be possible, but again I'm sort of working on the logic of implement the main loop and then try and build on that sort of thing, because again it's like a much more complicated series of problems to deal with then obviously, but I think it should be possible. And yeah, like as you can see, the starfield basically, because of there's like 80 starfields actually in this scene now, so like I don't think I mean I probably still can go off the you know, like where there's any starfield, but it's so spread now that it would be quite difficult. It doesn't actually seem to affect performance so much as well. Like performance seems unaffected by me adding lots of starfield components, which is basically what I'm doing. So I'm basically literally finding out the number of stars and then generating starfields based on the number of stars that have been generated. So I just times it by 2, so there'll be 82 starfields in this current scene, I think. And yeah, it doesn't seem to affect performance all too much. There does seem to be a bit of a performance boost actually by running this on Node, so that's good as well. And the actual main JavaScript file isn't so huge, it's like under 800 lines, so that's also good. I'm going to keep this a closed project. I've done a lot of work on this. It's also been a lot of time, and so I'm not going to make it open source for now. Maybe in the future, we'll see how things go, but and yeah, like I'm still working in tandem with Mike. The music you can hear in the background is music that Mike made specifically for the game. So, and I think it works quite well. It just loops round and round and round. Gives a bit more atmosphere. Probably the space home could be a bit lower. But yeah, it's quite a big feature list, obviously, of things to try and implement. But yeah, it's starting to become something a lot more real now, which is cool. You can literally just fly around here for quite a long time and not really get lost. Now I just need to add the actual gameplay mechanics of enemy, combat, and something to collect, like resource. I mean, I could like just make. It would be fairly simple to just create random blue mana, like the spheres in space, but probably going to tie it in with the asteroid fields and just having that as somewhere you can collect ore or mana or whatever the resource might be. It gives the player incentive to move around. Another blue sky feature I had in mind was navigation systems. So basically, and again, this is blue sky feature ideas, but you could have it so for each galaxy that's generated, you could get up a list of the stars on screen in the UI basically, and then you could sort of like say I want to navigate to star 21, for example, of 41, and it would actually create a line or some sort of like almost like GPS to that specific star system, if that makes sense, which would be a very cool thing to do, and it is probably technically possible, I think, but again, that's a side thing. I think the main thing I'm going to work on now is I need to return the asteroids to functionality, which I think is just a case of something I missed somewhere, like a line or something misplaced or something. But yeah, it's starting to look a lot cooler. I'll do an update in probably about a week or two, but I thought I'd just do like a video where I just like freestyle thinking about some features I'd like to implement if possible. Leave your thoughts below if you've got any thoughts on this project. Again, another further thing actually would be to mobile controls, mobile support, and VR support would be amazing. The only thing with VR, I mean, and it would support VR because it's A-frame, I'm not exactly sure how I'd implement a real control system in VR for this sort of experience. At the minute it just uses WSAD and the keyboard controls on a computer, which is fine, but obviously for VR, like how am I supposed to do it? Like I can't, like you've got 360 degrees of movement here with the mouse, but how do you, I mean obviously the looking around is fairly easy to do because you just look around in your headset and that's it, but what about acceleration? Like, I don't know, I mean that's more my lack of familiarity with VR, but I mean basically if you had a control interface you could probably do it, but I'd have to look into that. If anyone has any ideas for that, actually just let me know below, like if you know anything about how VR control systems work. I'm not exactly sure, like I wouldn't, like I've only really tried out, like I tried Quest a few times and Google Cardboard, but I'm not really, I'm more familiar with Web XR or AR than VR, to be honest. But yeah, I thought I'd just show this, and you know, I can just fly around like this merry. And yeah, the starfields, as you can see, like I've been flying for what, like 10 minutes now, and I've not run out of, I'm not outside of the sort of field of view for the stars. It goes on for a very long time. So yeah, it's X, Y, Z that randomly sort of spread as well. So it's almost, as far as I can tell so far, it's almost next to impossible to actually get out of the landscape of the starfield, if you will. So yeah, I think I'll leave the video there. Like I said, it's like a exploration of the features I'll hopefully be able to develop, and maybe within a month probably get like a public domain where people can actually try this out and have like a sort of beta version of the game up and running. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool now. It's coming along a lot, and be interested what people think of this, even if this early prototype stage of the game. Obviously the UI could do with a bit of improvement. I mean, it does actually work.
Welcome
like, I mean,
to
it
the
updates.
Solar System.
The shields should update once we got that. So, you know, so you can see the galaxy updates, the stars update, blah blah blah. Meta information. But yeah, I think I'll leave it there. Been a nerd. Like and subscribe if you want more. Keep up to date with this game dev. I've got more spare time in the minute, so I may well do tutorials. I was actually thinking about doing something basic like a JavaScript calculator tutorial soon for beginners. So watch out for that. Maybe just basically using that would just be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Just too basic for beginners, really, to help them out. Not nothing as advanced as this, I guess. Anyway, that's that. I'll just continue exploring your smaller piece, and let me know what you think of this project below. Do you think it's interesting? Do you think it has any potential? Have you got any ideas for interesting functionality? Let me know.